and welcome to The Corner. Well, I'm your host, Yvonne Kadzo. The word depression is very common and most of us have heard about it. But do we really understand the magnitude of that word? On today's episode, we are unpacking depression, or rather, trying to understand what depression is. And before we get into the conversation, we went to the streets and asked a few Kenyans if they know anyone who has been depressed or what they know about depression. And this is what they had to say.
I've met one person who has seriously been depressed, and did you love is a relationship after my breakup?
Oh, I've interacted with a few.
I got to know a person after he or she already had passed already that segment.
Yeah, I had a friend, but alienda hivyo ikaenda kaimeisha. Yeah.
Hey, kunao wengi.
And depressed. He has a friend of mine.
Well, apparently most people know what depression is and they know someone who has been in that situation. And on today's episode, I'm not alone here in studio. I have beautiful people with me. Thank you so much for coming, guys. And remember, you can catch this conversation via SMS line, that is 2316, or WhatsApp on 0786 316 316. For those on YouTube, karibuni sana. Thank you guys for coming. We can start with the introduction. Mr. Migoa.
Well, thank you very much, Yvonne.
Karibu.
As always, I'm delighted to be here. So my name is Albert Migoa. I define myself as a wellness creator. So as that, I do three key things. One of them is I'm a counseling psychologist. I also train and coach on emotional intelligence. And I'm also involved in aspect of mentorship, both locally and globally.
Emily?
Yes, thank you so much for having us. My name is Emily Wairimu Kinga. Kinga is my husband. I am delighted to be here. So yes, I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. I think it's important to say that everything I do is written on that. I am passionate about mental health and art, basically. I am an artist. I do spoken word. I minister through that. And I am the founder of an organization called Art Heal. It's basically, we basically create safe spaces for young people to express themselves, to just be vulnerable, and at the same time linking them up with places where they can get help. So yeah, that's pretty much who I am.
Yeah, that's nice.
My name is Edwin Boro. I can define myself as a lived experience expert. I'm here because of my lived experiences with mental health, and I'm very passionate about mental health. I'm doing a few things in mental health, but one thing that I'm passionate about is an initiative called Mentally Unsilenced, whereby we are having conversations on mental health, and we want people to have honest and candid conversations about mental health.
Yeah, that's very nice. Thank you so much for coming, guys. Now, today's topic, we just want to understand the word depression as a whole. If I may start with Mr. Migoa, what is the difference between being depressed and sad?
Okay. Thank you for your question, Yvonne. Good question indeed. So, depression, first and foremost, is a mental disorder. A mental disorder that affects your brain, your brain and the chemicals in your brain. And it's characterized by certain signs and symptoms, where, for instance, feeling of loneliness, feeling of crying, among others, which persist over consistently, almost every day, over a period of 2 weeks. Okay?
Oh, okay.
And aside from that, there's the element of self-loathing, and there's also the element of low self-esteem. Okay? Another thing about depression that I also want to point out is that depression just doesn't happen. It starts from somewhere. And I always like to go back from the beginning. It starts with what I call frustration, then progresses to stress, then progresses further into mild stress, severe stress, then depression. I say that because when you're frustrated, that happens, for instance, when you have two competing goals and failure to attain one leaves you frustrated. For instance, you've been invited for a wedding and you've been invited for a church function. If you don't go for the church function, you don't go for the wedding, so you're frustrated. So if you're not able to find out ways of dealing with that level of frustration, it progresses to stress. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm not being very simple. So once you can't handle that issue still, the stress progresses from mild to severe.
Okay.
When you're at the level of severe, you're at the borderline, okay? And now, when now you come to depression, number one, it's a medical issue, where now you actually take medication.
Yeah.
Sadness is an emotional pain for a reason. So, for example, you'll be sad because you've lost a loved one or you've lost a job. Yes, and also it's one of the signs of depression.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but in summation, sadness is an emotion.
Oh, sadness, it's more of an emotion.
It is an emotion.
Because, you know, I usually see on social media, on TikTok, maybe someone is sad and then, you know, we just tag it and say, oh, she's depressed or he's depressed. But maybe it's just for that period.
And if I may just ask, if I may just go further, when I say I feel sad, can you see sad?
No.
But if I say I'm feeling sad and I start crying, then there's, okay, Albert is sad.
Yeah.
So I'm able to manifest it physically.
Yeah, if I can come back to our guest, depression is a very common term for you. Maybe if I take you back to the go, if you can share your experience with depression.
That's a long experience. But basically, I would summarize it. When I was in campus, I used to feel exactly what he's describing. And at some point, actually it started way earlier, like when I was a kid, I was around 12, because that's the first time I had ideated suicide. Like a lot was happening at home. There was violence, there was just a lot of stuff that was happening at home that was getting into me, and I didn't know that. So actually that's the first time I remember feeling like that. I did not know. That's the time I even tried to take my life. And then a lot of stuff happened. Then the time I actually realized it, I was in campus. So many things were happening at the same time. You know how all the storms come and they meet right at the center. And I think I was losing it. I was working, but I couldn't even get myself to get up in the morning. I hated getting up. I couldn't shower. I couldn't clean up. And if you know me, that's not me. I was just feeling lazy. And then I used to have continuous migraines that would not end. And then I remember listening to a spoken word by a guy called Jennings. And he was describing his experience. And for the first time, I felt that someone put words into whatever I was feeling, because it was normal for me. It was something I had lived with for a long time, but I didn't know it was something that can be addressed, if you know what I mean. And then from that point, it came from now talking to someone. I remember telling my friend, I think I'm depressed, and she didn't even know what I meant. Sautadu, you know those friends, like Sautadu. But God has been very gracious to me, because I ended up meeting up with people who were in the same space and people who are seeking help. For the first time, I learned that you can actually talk to a therapist and that you can get help. So from then on, when I'm getting into a depressive episode, now I know, and now I know from the very beginning, like, if it's prolonging for about a week and I'm feeling a certain way, I know I need to, probably it's something I'm holding that I need to talk about. So yeah, I am now more aware, and I see it from afar and seek help in advance.
Nice. For Edwin, if maybe you can tell us, at what point did you maybe, like, you know, realize, this, whatever I'm feeling, it's not good, and what had maybe triggered it?
That's a tough question. I honestly didn't know I had a problem until 2015, because most of my problems, I solved them with alcohol. So, and I'm also the bubbly kind of person. So I'll be laughing with you now, but when I'm alone is when I feel a bit off. But still, I would solve everything with alcohol. So it wasn't until when I got to get treatment, actually. And actually, I went to get treatment for alcohol use disorder, not depression. Then that is when the underlying conditions came about. And that is when now I was able to connect. Like in 2011, I had attempted suicide. But the interesting thing, I was the kind of person who used to make fun of people who died by suicide. And I was telling people, I can't do that. And yet I had done it. And since nobody, especially outside the family, knew, it was kept under wraps, you get. So even at that time, I still didn't think something was off. I just thought these things are normal, you know. It was when I went for treatment that I now started realizing that for so long, I was in a very bad state. I actually don't know how I survived. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Migwa, from both the experience, you can, for example, Edwin, he's a bubbly person, so it's so hard to identify if someone is having an underlying issue. There are those of us who, you know, you'll just know if you just look at us. So my question is, how do I identify that maybe my friend is not, he or she is not okay? He's not just sad, but maybe he or she is depressed.
There are numerous symptoms, some of which they've mentioned. I'll mention just but a few. For instance, one feeling sad, one feeling lonely, one feeling agitated. You lose interest in things that were of interest to you. You lose interest in your hobbies. Inability to make decisions, okay? You then begin to exhibit certain physical ailments, like you're saying, that have no treatment, like headaches and migraines, change in appetite. You even have got sometimes problem in sleeping. You could even have lack of appetite or even weight gain, okay? Now, I must emphasize that the symptoms I've mentioned actually exist in what you call the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of DSM-5. That's a Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders. And if somebody exhibits at least 5 of these symptoms in a period of within 2 weeks, then you're likely to be depressed.
Yeah.
Now, this is the key, I always say. You must be an active listener and an active observer. Look out. If you know your friend or if you know your family member, you'll be able to pick up a note when something is a bit off. So if somebody was used to be happy, for instance, and all of a sudden is low, you need to question. Or maybe somebody was a bit introverted, now they're all of a sudden extroverted, you need to figure out why. But besides that, I think for me, the most important thing is the social interaction. Are you able to connect? Because the thing about depressive people is that aspect of connection. And if you're able to get that support system or get somebody who can check in with you, that can help you.
Yeah.
I say that because remember, when you're depressed, you have a myriad of emotions within you. Yeah? And before I forget, suicidal ideation and even self-harm, especially. Because they always say, after depression, the next step is suicide. So for me, those are some of the symptoms, signs and symptoms that I think it will be important for people to be aware of. I acknowledge there are many, many more. So for me is one, let's do more research on the subject matter, and let's purpose to be active listeners and observers.
Yeah. You see, when he mentioned about either one of the symptoms is weight loss or weight gain, but I think in our setup, when you gain weight, people are like, maisha inakuendelea vizuri.
Congratulations.
Yes.
I know you're pregnant. Kumbe you are not, like you are literally dealing with other things. Now, if I may ask, during that time when you guys were experiencing, during that moment, did it affect how you're relating with people around you, and how?
Oh, definitely. I wouldn't say I am a bubbly person like he is, but I'm equally a social person. I love to go for events. I love to interact with people. In fact, sometimes when you go to church with my husband, I say hi to everyone, and he just goes to the car and stays waiting for me. So I pulled out from all that. I used to ignore calls. In fact, I would see a phone call, and sometimes I would switch off my phone. I did not want anything to do with people, no human interactions. So yeah, that was a big one for me. I think the other thing would be lack of interest. I didn't want to do anything fun. Like, I became one of the dullest person, if there's a word like that. I became so dull. I did not want to, even watching TV, I just wanted to be in bed and I sleep and I just, yeah.
If I can just throw in another question. You know, during that time, did you ever feel the need or the pressure to be okay?
Not really. I think I only felt that when I was alone, because when I was with people, I was putting up a face. Only when I'm alone, that is when I used to really wonder, is something And then at that time, I had already gotten to a point where I could fix everything with alcohol. Alcohol was my go-to. So whenever those thoughts came, I would get something to get me high because it would make me forget. And then the next few minutes, I'll be maybe around people. So it was a mess. It was just a mess.
Well, we are taking a short break. We'll be right back. Keep it Family TV.
Tomorrow on She.
Jambo, Jambo Bwana. We're talking about women in the tours and travel space.
My biggest inspiration was my passion.
What were your expectations?
To meet people and to make their dreams come true.
Did you see some Kenyans really looking to travel during that time of lockdown?
A lot. We had even to put a package like offer so they can able to travel.
They'll call even at 3 a.m. Boss, amka, nataka kwenda.
I want to go.
I want to go, I'm tired.
It's tomorrow at 8:30 p.m.
Welcome back to The Corner. I'm your host, Yvonne Kadzo. Now, on today's episode, we are discussing depression. And if you're just joining us, don't feel left out. We still have so much installed for you. Remember, you can join in the conversation via SMS line, that is 2316, or WhatsApp on 0786 316 316. For those on YouTube, karibuni sana. Feel free to like, to share, and comment. Now, before we went on a break, we were talking how, sometimes depression cannot... Okay, it's obviously not a good situation to be, and sometimes you feel the pressure to be okay because you kind of feel you're not okay. If I may ask Mr. Migoa, now how do I handle that situation when, I'm feeling like I need to be okay, but I'm not okay? Yeah.
I think number one is to acknowledge that you have an issue, number one. Number two, there's need for the people around you to be able to validate your feelings, okay? That yes, you're feeling this way, you're feeling sad, you're feeling unhappy. Number three, there's need for compassion, okay? Fourthly, there's need for people to listen to you with a non-judgmental ear, okay?
True.
And fifthly, I dare say, when necessary, get the help. Don't hesitate to get help. I think for us, because perhaps many of us don't really understand the genesis of depression and what it can do, because of the various myths that are out there that I know we'll discuss shortly. There's need for us to know really what depression can do and where it comes from.
Yeah. If I may throw this on the floor, what are some of misconceptions people have about depression?
Recently, I think about 2 months ago, I was in a very bad depressive episode. I actually didn't go to work for quite some time. And some of the people who I had interactions with during that time, and mostly afterwards, were like, what you're telling us is basically you not wanting to either work or you not wanting to wake up. Why don't you want to wake up? I mean, you're a man. And I think there is that part that people don't understand, that there's one, the chemical imbalance in the brain. It's not like I flip a switch, you get? So one of the things that I have been told is, one, that has been constant since I got diagnosed. I don't pray enough.
Like you don't pray enough, that's why you're depressed.
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing is I'm just not willing to apply myself. I'm lazy, and some of these things actually don't make sense to me, because I think I have seen the worst part of it. A person who has attempted suicide and stuff like that, I think I have seen quite enough. And at one point, there is somebody who told me that maybe it's a family thing, there is a curse or something like that. And I was like, I'm the only one who is cursed. I mean, what is wrong?
What's not happening?
What is not happening? So there's a lot of stuff, witchcraft, lazy, you name it. But we take it. We take it in stride.
Emily, what are some of the misconceptions?
I think it's basically what he's saying. I know in the Christian circles they will say that if you're a believer, then you cannot be depressed.
Yes.
It's a sign of a lack of faith. and like you're saying, you know, praying, and also the lazy part, because it demonstrates itself like laziness. Why are you not able to clean up after yourself? Why are you not able to get out of bed? Why are you not able to be productive at work and do all those things? And then there's those ones who keep telling you to just snap out of it.
Yeah.
Why you're seeking attention? I mean, you're just trying to manipulate people. I mean, people say all sorts of things, maybe out of ignorance and also maybe out of denial. Like he was saying, he's making fun of people who are depressed, and yet he was one. So maybe by putting up that face, I'm trying to tell people, I cannot go through that.
Yes.
Yet when they go home, they face the same thing.
Yeah. Mr. Migo, in this generation of ours, I mean, sometimes when you are depressed, most of our parents or our older people, they won't really understand. They'll take it as what they've just said, like it's laziness, it's, you know, you don't want to do this, you just want to sleep and all that. If I may ask, what should I be considerate about when I'm handling someone who's, you know, having the symptoms of maybe being depressed?
I think I'll go back to what I said earlier on, where there's need to really validate this person, okay? There's need to be compassionate.
Yeah.
There's need to be non-judgmental, yeah? But there's also need to really take this person as an individual and appreciate him or her as they are. Yes, I say this because just as they've mentioned, people seem not to understand what depression is all about. And I say this because more often than not, they're guided by the various myths and misconceptions that are there. So I think if you're able to do that, and then of course, get the person help, I think you'll be able to tackle it.
Yeah. Now, since, you know, we've talked all that, now coming back to how did you overcome depression?
I don't think it's a one-time thing.
Okay.
Because right now it's only that I am more aware. So now I'm able to like counter it, and I have a therapist. Like every time when I feel like things are overwhelming, I'm very quick to, and it's okay and it's normal.
Yeah.
But I think for me, my walk of faith was challenged a lot. But it's also amazing how I had that affirmation from within me every day. Like even when I felt I wanted to die, there was just some hope inside of me that was like, no, you have a lot to do. I have a lot that I need to do with you, so you cannot go and you're not going. So my faith in God, that was a huge one for me. And I think also the friends that I am surrounded with, maybe not family, because I was not around family, but they were very supportive. And maybe one of the things I can add on to that, when you're listening to someone, don't listen to fix them. Because most of the time you're listening and you're really not listening, you're waiting to respond. You're like, oh, now what do I tell her? Gosh, now I feel awkward if I don't say something. Well, for someone who is there, they really want to be heard. Even when it doesn't make sense, just listen to them. So that really helped, and also therapy. I think I realized there were mountains of things that I had not addressed all the way from my childhood, and things were just piling up and piling up. So I had to go back and address some of those things. Some of those I'm still dealing with even now. Yeah, because like the first time I dealt with it and I was okay, and then I went back to it, I was like, come on. I thought we dealt with this. But yeah, if you're not able to, if you don't deal with things as they come, it's the suppressed emotions. Something will, like you can say something right now and I just explode because I have a lot of things that I've not dealt with and they have accumulated. So I think for me, I'm all for express yourself. Whether you write it, whether you say it, whether you dance it, whether you scream it, whether you cry to your pillow, at least speak out, share, and if you need someone to share with, we always have safe spaces for Art Hill. You can just come and be vulnerable and just pour it out.
Edwin, how do you cope with when you have those bad days and
I think one of the best things that ever happened to me was getting my diagnosis, because I didn't know. I didn't know. And in fact, even as I went for treatment, I only thought alcohol was the issue. Only to realize that alcohol was actually a coping mechanism for the issues I was going through. So now I know. One thing that I appreciate and I always say is that self-awareness, self-acceptance. I'm not in denial. I will not deny that I struggle with depression once in a while. I will not deny that I am a recovering alcoholic, 7 years sober. I will not.
Trumpets.
I will not deny that I struggle with anxiety, and I will not deny that these are. They don't basically define me, they are just part of me. Because I think we have that problem, and a lot of people will say Edwin the depressive, or Edwin the person who, you know, they will not, people do not want to see you as a person. They want to see you as the condition. And I think one thing that now has made me realize that there is Edwin who comes with all this baggage, and there is a way Edwin can handle that baggage. One thing, I have an awesome support system. I have faced stigma from here to Timbuktu or something like that, but I have an awesome support system, right from the family to outside the family. I have a great support system. Number two, I am vocal about mental health, and I am also vocal about my lived experience. That is why I say I am mentally unsilenced. I am unapologetically an expert by my own experience. I am the one who knows how well depression has affected me, how alcoholism, all that stuff. So when it comes to depression, I can say I am self-aware. I can feel it coming from a mile away. I know who to talk to, when to talk to them, and how to talk to them. Okay? I know when it is time not to talk to anyone and rush to my psychiatrist. You get? I know that. Because one thing that people need to understand, in as much as you can be given the best help or the best medication or stuff like that, at the end of the day, the heavy lifting has to be me.
And that's very nice. As we wind up, Mr. Migua, what advice can you give to a young person out there who's probably, you know, going through the depression at this moment?
I think for me the first thing is to really get a good understanding of what depression is. So for me is one, to know more about it. Depression also affects your activities of daily living. You have to be resilient. How do you cope with life? And in that regard, I want to mention the 5 key areas of resilience. We've got the emotional, the psychological, physical, spiritual, and social. And so we should purpose as much as possible to ensure that these areas are well balanced.
Emily, in 30 seconds.
Imagine it's going to be all right. Some of us are here to give you hope that we went through that, and we are here, and you're also going to overcome. And if possible, please seek help. If you don't know who to talk to, you can talk to us at Art Hill Foundation on social media. We'll link you up. You can even reach out to him. Just have a conversation with someone and they'll help you.
Well, my director is telling me time is up. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope anyone who is going through this process, or he or she is in a depressing period, I hope that you get help, self-awareness, and you know, at the end of the day, everything will be fine. Thank you so much for watching. This has been The Corner. I'm your host, Yvonne Kadzo.
Fresh, insightful, and in-depth stories from current affairs, opinion, inspiration, lifestyle, church-related articles, and so much more on www.familynews.today. Insights at your fingertips.